Who is this irresistible creature who has an insatiable love for the dead?
You know, it's Halloween. I guess everyone's a devil and gets scared.
Stop the prime time, bitch!
Do you want to die, Sydney? Your mother sure didn't.
Cookie, I'm scared.
You fucking should be.
What happened? Are you okay?
He's slime.
Don't let her get away, Mommy. Don't let her live. I won't, Jesus. I won't.
Looking forward to the best Christmas ever, filled with fun, smiles, and laughter.
Welcome back to the first annual Halloween special. Tonight we're talking about a new release, and that is Terrifier 3. I've become a recent Terrifier fan. I just watched the first two movies a few days ago. I liked the first movie and thought the second one was even better, so I was really excited to check this movie out and see what they could do with an actual budget behind it. I'm happy to report that if you like the first two movies, then you're going to like this one just as much, if not even more. Like I said, I was interested to see how a movie like Terrifier 3 would fare with a larger budget. The first Terrifier had a budget of $35,000, I believe, and the second movie had a budget of $250,000. Terrifier 3 has a budget of $2 million, so I was really interested to see what a larger budget Terrifier movie would look like. And the production side of things was fantastic. There were moments where I couldn't believe that the budget was only $2 million because it looked so good. They also add things in here that they couldn't really use in the first two movies. Like, there's more extras roaming around, there's more locations that they can film at, and the color grading is much better than in the previous two. The previous two, as much as I like those movies, they did look really cheap. They do have a unique look to them, but Terrifier 3 definitely does look a little better because they can afford stuff like color grading. You can't talk about a Terrifier movie without talking about the kills, and the kills, like always, are brutal. They're not as gory as some reports may lead you to believe. Like, if you've heard reports that people have passed out, thrown up, or even left the theater during this, it's not that bad if you're used to gore in other horror movies, and especially if you've seen the other two Terrifier movies and you were fine during those, you'll be totally fine during this movie. That being said, there were some insane and creative kills in here. I think the opening scene and the shower scene are all-timers for this franchise. The shower scene especially was my favorite part of the movie. And the whole final act is insanely twisted and gross. It can go a little over the top in some places, but if you're used to the gore in these movies, then you'll probably still be fine during this movie. But what makes the Terrifier movie so good is its humor. The humor and campy moments in these movies make them more enjoyable instead of feeling just like a typical torture porn movie. And Terrifier 3 keeps that formula up. The humor in here is probably the strongest it's been in the three movies. There were many moments where I was actually laughing out loud. It's got a really good sense of comic relief because in a movie like Terrifier, you kind of need that, otherwise the movies aren't going to be enjoyable. The pacing in this movie is also great. My biggest issue with Terrifier 2 was its pacing. The movie ran at like 2 hours and 20 minutes, and you felt that runtime. I thought it could have been easily 30 or 40 minutes shorter. Terrifier 3 is around 2 hours long, which is still long for a slasher movie like this, but I felt like it justified its runtime way more than Terrifier 2 did. It really only feels like an hour and a half. It's really entertaining, and there's not much fat here besides the first like 20 minutes. The characters in Terrifier 3 is something I'm kind of mixed on. They range from either good to okay. Sienna, of course, is awesome. Her story is really good in this movie and feels like a natural continuation from Terrifier 2. Besides Art the Clown, she's easily the highlight of this movie, and she's becoming one of my favorite final girls of all time. I also really liked Gabby in this movie. I thought she was a really good addition to this franchise, and she had a really cute dynamic with Sienna. For a young girl, she was also great in the final act. She sold a lot of the insane and terrifying moments in that final act. I was kind of mixed on Jonathan in here. I did really enjoy his character in Terrifier 2 and thought that he was a really interesting character. But in Terrifier 3, he kind of feels underdeveloped. He's not necessarily bad, but it just feels like they didn't do a whole lot with him. And the rest of the characters didn't really leave any impression on me. Jonathan's roommate, Cole, was okay, but he didn't get any development, and most of the new characters just felt like bodies for Art the Clown to kill. Whether you love or hate it, Terrifier 3 takes some risks. It crosses boundaries with its kills. It makes you uncomfortable sometimes. And I think it's really cool that Damien Leone is able to do whatever he wants with this franchise. They also take some risks in the story and character development, and while not all of them worked for me, I can't help but applaud them for taking some huge swings like that. However, I do have a few negatives with Terrifier 3. My biggest issue with this movie is that the story isn't as good as Terrifier 2. I thought Terrifier 2's story was really interesting and kept the movie pretty entertaining at 2 hours and 20 minutes. Terrifier 3 doesn't have as good of a story as Terrifier 2. It's not as interesting, and it kind of takes a little too long for the movie to actually get going. There's a lot of setup at the beginning, and it wasn't very interesting. There's also a lot of conveniences and off-screen moments to keep the movie closer to 2 hours, and you kind of just have to accept that because this movie would probably be around the same length as Terrifier 2 if they kept all of that in. But at the same time, it can get a little confusing, and sometimes you feel like you missed something. And I wasn't a huge fan of the last 10 minutes. They felt kind of rushed, and it didn't really set up Terrifier 4 in a very satisfying or interesting way. I'm still gonna go see Terrifier 4 if they make it. But as a setup for Terrifier 4, I don't think Terrifier 3's ending did a really good job at getting you excited for that movie. Overall, though, Terrifier 3 is a great next chapter in this franchise. It's fun, gory, and insane. And if you're a fan of the first two Terrifier movies, you're gonna like this movie just as much. I will say that I don't think this is as good as Terrifier 2, but I do actually prefer it to the first movie. I'm gonna give Terrifier 3 a B. Guys, thanks so much for watching. I'll have the next video in this series for you guys on Thursday, so make sure to stay tuned for that. With that said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!